In my last video, I talked about what you need to start crocheting amigurumi. I covered the yarn, the tools that I recommend, and I even gave you the list of stitches and techniques that you should learn. This is a continuation of that video because I'm going to show you what happens after you learn those stitches and techniques. So grab a coffee and let's discuss this process. If you're learning to crochet amigurumi, the first thing that goes into that is learning to crochet. In my last video, I gave you all the different things that you need to purchase to get started and even gave you some stitches and techniques that you should learn first. I even gave you the order in which you should probably start to do these things just because I think they build nicely on top of each other. But those were just the basics. Amigurumi designers use those basics to create some really cool shapes. Check out this example of a wig for an amigurumi doll. It's a combination of working in rounds and rows. Or at least I think it is. I haven't seen the pattern and I'm more of an animal maker myself. Then you've got other techniques like learning to crochet on the surface of a finished piece. In this example, the front loops of the single crochets were left exposed, so you could come back in later and create the rest of the dress. But you don't always need those exposed loops. Sometimes you just crochet directly into a finished piece. There's so much more to learn because as you discover these new things, you're also deciphering code. I'm talking about how to read crochet patterns. I struggled so long and I almost gave up on crocheting amigurumi because I couldn't read the patterns. I could crochet all the stitches and even knew their abbreviations. One time, I even read about how to read crochet patterns, and everything made sense. Until I started trying to read a pattern. I just couldn't understand what I was doing wrong. Then one day, I had a breakthrough. The stitch abbreviations are really the only standard thing in the pattern. You see, a pattern is really just a set of instructions, and every designer uses these instructions to help you recreate what they've made. Let me give you an example. The instructions might tell you to put a single crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then increase after that. And then it tells you to repeat that set of instructions until you get to the end of the round. So here's what it might look like. And here's another way it might look. I'm sure there are more variations, but I hope you get the point. So you learn how to crochet stitches, you learn some really cool techniques, and you even learn how to read the patterns. But that's not quite the end of it. Crocheting amigurumi is knotting yarn together to create a kind of outer skin for your dolls or toys. Then you add stuffing into that skin. Most people use polyfill for this, and you should be able to find some in the sewing section of your local craft store. Understuffing your amigurumi doll could leave it a bit flat, and it may not give the round tummy appearance that makes some of these designs so cute. Overstuffing your doll could stretch things out and you'll start to see the stuffing come through the stitches. In my opinion, there's really no trick to understanding how much stuffing to add to your work. You really just kind of take your time with this and then use the pictures in the pattern as a guide. Places in the pattern where the row count gets larger could indicate that the piece is going to be wider. And then that also means that places in areas where the stitch count gets smaller could mean that the piece is going to start to be a little bit more narrow. I kind of fluff the stuffing up before putting it into my work, and when I get to a point where it's getting kind of full, I start adding smaller amounts at a time into the center and then pushing it out to the edge. Sewing pins are used to kind of hold things together as you go in and out and between pieces, and sometimes you don't always get a nice seamless join, and maybe when you're done, you might find that things are just a little off-centered. There's a lot that can go wrong in this stage, and let's face it, we're supposed to be crocheting, not sewing. This is why I design patterns that reduce the amount of sewing that's needed. There's just something odd about almost being done, but not quite done because you gotta sew or embroider things, and I just rather not. There is a workaround to avoid sewing, and it involves crocheting pieces together. Usually a pattern will instruct you to fold the 2 ends of an arm or a limb together and then stitch them closed so that it can later be put into the body as you crochet these two pieces together. This definitely makes things easier, but it can be a little difficult to get through all those stitches, and it's got a lot of yarn there, and sometimes it can be a little bit bulky. There are different methods that can be used to accomplish this, but that's a whole other conversation. There's one more skill that's super important because it might be the only thing that people see when they're looking at your finished amigurumi doll. I'm sure you've seen amigurumi dolls that use embroidery to create eyes, eyelashes, eyebrows, maybe some nails. And those are really details that are done at the final stages, and they really make things come to life. If you ever look at your finished amigurumi doll and think, something's missing, it could be adding eyelashes or eyebrows. There is one more skill to making amigurumi, and I think it's the most advanced out of all of them. Sculpting is a technique that's done in the finishing stages, and it could really make a big difference in how your finished piece looks. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the before and after sculpting of an elephant head. I think this might be the most difficult skill to learn because most patterns don't provide detailed enough instructions on how to do this. I don't see many people teaching this concept. Yeah, they might give you pictures and tutorials on how to do it specifically for their pattern, but I haven't found anybody who really kind of gives you the basics and understanding of how to do it on your own. Maybe I should make a video on that. Let me know in the comments if you want to see it. It's honestly a finesse type of technique because you need to manipulate the surface of your finished piece by bringing and pulling the finished surface into the doll at a very specific angle. Get the angle wrong or take the yarn tail through the wrong place and you're gonna get a different result. I also find it difficult to undo the sculpting because it can be difficult to see the yarn tail after you've pulled it in so tight, and trying to undo those things can damage the surface of your finished piece and you may not recover from that. I know I didn't give you all the details to become a super pro or master at crocheting and doing all these different skills, but it's because I wanted just to open your eyes up to the different things that go into making amigurumi. You don't have to be a pro at these things all at once. As I said before, learning to crochet amigurumi is a process, and I think you'll learn all of these skills over time as you make more and more projects. You might even come up with your own ways of doing things. Stick with it and don't give up, because you can always ask for help. And don't be afraid to do that, because there are Facebook groups out there just for that. People get together and ask questions of how to do things, and sometimes you just need a little advice on what colors to use. Let me know in the comments if there's something that you need help with. Maybe I can make a video for you. That's going to be it for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around for more. Thanks for watching. Overstitching? This is why I design my patterns to reduce